Right. Welcome back to Automatic Now. Thank you for joining me today. Today is episode 4 in the Hermetic Principles series. And today it's all about the principle of polarity. What's that? In a nutshell, it's saying that everything has its opposite and that it's all the same coin, just flipped. And so it's really talking about how society loves to pick a side. And I'm going to talk about today and would like to challenge you into what if we didn't pick a side? What if we like a few things from both sides? What if the secret is to not be at either end of a spectrum, but work our way into dancing along the spectrum? This will all make sense as I unfold it. Stay with me. So, as I said, the principle of polarity, it teaches us that everything exists on a continuum, okay? Hot and cold, they're not different things. They're temperatures at different points along the same continuum, the same scale, aren't they? So they both exist in the same thing, right? They're simply temperatures. Love and hate is the same thing. It's both are very intense emotional investments, just pointing in opposite directions. So if everything exists on a continuum, then where you are along that line, it's not fixed. You can shift it, you can control it, you can move it. And when you understand that, when you really understand that, you then are able to stop letting your emotions drive the car. You can take the wheel yourself and work your own way along that line. So today we're going to talk about that, how to use polarity to master your emotions, how to reframe your thinking and stop seeing life so black and white. In my opinion, it honestly isn't. We like it to be. And so that's from a psychology perspective. I like to break things down into a bit of psychology, a bit of philosophy, a bit of woo-woo, bit of science. There's a bit for everyone. Psychology will say to us that black and white is popular and works for a lot of people because our brains love to categorize things. It loves the binary system. You think about it, good, bad, right, wrong, good and evil, safe and dangerous, hot and cold. It's efficient. Cognitively, it's efficient. It's easy. Think about when you're getting to know someone, you know, doesn't it feel so much more easy, relaxed even, if you know where that person stands on a certain subject? When you just, right, which side of the fence you on? And once you know that, once you can categorize their thoughts or beliefs on a certain subject, then you feel more at ease because you can put it in a spot. Humans tend to struggle with the grey areas, or as I like to call it, the rainbow. We struggle with things that aren't clearly defined into black and white. And yet there could be so much more understanding if we allow there to be a full spectrum, not just black and white. So this black and white thinking, it's actually a cognitive distortion because not everything, it's not black and white. However, it developed over many, many generations because if you think about it, it's what helped our ancestors survive when they had to make quick decisions in the wild, didn't it? You don't have time to kind of look into the broader aspects of things. Is this going to kill me or not? Is this dangerous or safe? Done. So it had its place. It needed to be black and white for survival. Now we're not in that sort of survivalistic environment. And so maintaining a black and white mindset, it actually really just makes us a lot more rigid, reactive, and emotionally volatile. Yeah, we're not controlling ourselves very well at all when it comes to emotions because we want it to be easy. We want it to be right or wrong, black or white, yes or no. Pick a side. Sit on the fence or you get splinters. That kind of thinking. That's what makes it easy for our brains, because we don't have to think. We don't have to think critically. We don't have to broaden our thinking. And yet that is what's going to allow us to grow by doing those things. From a philosophical perspective, the Stoics, Taoists, and even Nietzsche, they all remind us that opposites, they not only coexist, they define each other. So you might have heard this saying that without pain, there's no concept of pleasure. Without sadness, joy loses its depth, the understanding of it. Even the, what am I thinking of? The yin yang. It's under here somewhere. The yin yang symbol. It's not just about balance. It's showing that each side contains the seed of the other. They coexist within each other. That's a big point to make. When we're trying to split things in half, that you have to be all this or have to be all that. There's all these teachings that show us, if we're prepared to kind of take a breath and let down the defenses, we can see that everything coexists and that you can be a bit of many things. You don't have to be all that or all this. You can be both. So this is where the emotional mastery comes into it. Because when you live in that binary kind of mindset, then what tends to happen is emotionally you swing quite violently at times between the extremes. I love him, I hate him. No, I love him again. That volatile swing, is from your brain wanting to pick a side. Yeah? However, instead of that swinging, emotional mastery comes from learning how to see the full spectrum. What if instead of saying you're happy or you're unhappy, what if you're somewhere along a scale that you can choose to move along deliberately? You decide where you are. You move yourself along the scale. Yeah? Same with fear. Same with confidence. I mean, that's a big one, isn't it? Trust, suspicion, patience, frustration, all of these emotions, rather than I'm so frustrated or I'm so calm. It didn't sound calm, did it? So calm. I'm so calm. These are on the same spectrum. So you can move yourself. If you're feeling frustrated, see yourself as being able to move yourself along the spectrum, that you're not in a fixed spot. This mindset, this is what's going to give you control over that and over your reactions, because you stop seeing that fixed point and instead you start seeing it as fluid, as adjustable, as within your control. And that's so much more empowering, isn't it? So here's some things that I'd like you to take away from this, some things to try. Okay? The first one is looking at the scale, identifying the scale. If you're feeling an extreme of something, name its opposite. Take a moment to think, what is the opposite of this? And then map for yourself. You can do it either in your mind or, you know what, get out paper and pen and do some artwork. Map out where you are along the line between the extreme you're feeling and its opposite. Once you can see the line, it's so much more, because you're almost dissociated from it. You can almost step out and see the emotional line that you're traveling. So then to be able to look at it and give yourself then that control to go, okay, hang on. And then you can start moving yourself. So you shift, this is number 2, shift through small moves. Okay, you don't have to giant leap from hate to love. No one's asking you to do that. However, you can inch along that line. You might move to, instead of hating someone or something, you can move to simply disliking them and sit with that for a bit. And then maybe the next move you want to go is into neutrality. You know what? I don't even care either way. I've got no feelings, this way or that way. then it can move into liking someone or something, a food, whatever. See how it's a lot easier, though, to move from neutrality to like or neutrality to dislike. Once you can master how to move between those emotions, you are in control of your emotions, of your reactions, of your thoughts. So when you stop treating the opposite of whatever you're feeling as the enemy, then that's when you get to learn from it. When you see it as all one thing, instead of, I shouldn't hate anyone. That does no one any good. It's just judgment. It's not helping you. It's just judging yourself that society says you're not supposed to hate anyone. Well, at the moment, that's how you feel, and that's okay. However, what I'm suggesting you do is that instead of seeing it as a bad thing, as an enemy, because seeing it as a bad thing is also keeping it in that binary world, see it simply as it is. It is what it is, and it's an emotion and a feeling along a spectrum of hate and love, if that's what you're going to use as the opposite. And then you can start to see where you want to move it to if you're not comfortable with hating someone, because to be honest, hating takes up a lot of energy. It's draining, isn't it? And so perhaps you're in a position where you don't want to have such strong feelings against someone. This is the way that you master your emotions over it. Okay? And the other thing I want to challenge you to do is about reframing conflict. So opposing views, as I said, can be simply different expressions of the same value. And I talked about this quite a bit when COVID was around and right at the beginning of the debate over the needle, I had said then that both sides of the do I get the vaccine or not, both sides of that argument, of that debate, could have the same value. They're arguing for the same thing. They just define it differently. And so to vaccinate or not to vaccinate, the value that the person could be fighting for may be freedom. And yet how they define it, how they define freedom, will show you what side of the conflict they're on. And so it's actually just a really interesting perspective to learn from. I'm not suggesting that we enter into debates over what I've just discussed. I'm simply saying become aware, start to notice and open your mind to the fact that when two sides of, whether it's two people or government or whatever, when there's a debate happening, really listen to the value that each side is fighting for. Because a lot of the time, opposing views are simply different expressions of the same value. And once you can see that, that's when you can actually start to see that they're not so far apart. They're fighting for the same thing, simply defining it differently. So how can we bridge that gap? That's something else though. Anyway, I guess what I'm also getting at is that, love, hate, fear, courage, hot, cold, they're not enemies. They never were enemies. They're just different points on the same scale. And so, when we can see this, when we can become aware of it, when we can start to really understand it and see it and stop reacting to extremes and start moving ourselves deliberately along the spectrum, along the line, that's emotional mastery. That's where you're empowered, you're in control of how you feel and how you respond, how you understand. So that's a nice, short and sweet one today. I'm going to leave it there today. If you want to keep exploring this, it's a really, really interesting topic. I've spoken about it a few times, about the black and white kind of society that we live in. If you want to keep looking into this further, how to shift your perspective with this, how to rewire your reactions, I strongly encourage you and ask you to like and subscribe here on Talk Train. You can also see other videos and posts and contact me through my profiles on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Also, if you found today's session helpful, if you found some good information in there that you think someone else could use, please feel free to tag them and share that with them. Other than that, until next time, please stay curious, stay aware, and keep talking. Much love. Bye.